have never understood why so many of my peers find it necessary to reveal themselves to the world. Is it not more useful for your enemies to wonder and guess at who was behind the latest trouble washing up on their shores? Arrogance serves you not at all in pursuing your objectives. Give into petty, human needs, and you will find your objectives drifting out of reach and your enemies converging against you. Instead, gird yourself in secrecy. Let your proxies act on your behalf and keep them ignorant about whom they serve and what exactly you hope to achieve. In my experience, the lands are filled with potential servants. Should one fall, you will always be able to find another to take its place. The library's braziers of Warlock's Crypt burned low, throwing a steady red upon the black glass table where Larlock had called up an illusion, a transcript in a fluorescent light. A cellar showed itself to the two liches, benches crowded with alembics, hooks and jars labelled in a careful, merciless hand. A mirrored door stood ajar behind a shelving of apothecary tins. Its silvered face still wore the faint after-image of a spectral visor, as if the door had just finished frightening someone and was resting from the effort. Ilin Toth leaned over a slab at the room's centre. His healer's apron had learned too much. His fingers were steady above a woman's quiet form. A black cat watched from the rafters, tail twitching with the patience of a practiced accomplice. "Listen," Zastam murmured. "This is what the book is. The Necromancy of Thay. This is the story I tell to the lesser apprentices within Thay." Factually incorrect, however useful for an understanding on the book. Within the illusion, the Red Wizard's voice scraped the stone in a whisper that wanted to be a sermon. "The work here is simple," he said, drawing a sigil that smelled of rotting flesh. "It lets me continue at night. Progress is slow, but the reanimation is easy, restoring life. That prize eludes me. Oh, how I wish to touch her warm face once more." He lifted his head, eyes teary, then focusing on a heavy volume on a side table. Its cover, a funerary mask with a lipless mouth. "The Necromancy of Thay contains what I need. Secrets to necromancy, resurrection, and undeath," he went on. "But it fights at every step, as does my apprentice." A thin smile coalesced upon his time-worn face. "At least my familiar secures the bodies without raising questions." Zastam watched without comment as Ilin crossed to the book. Larlock's Ioun stones drew closer, as if the illusion had a certain gravity. "The Necromancy of Thay," Ilin whispered once again to the mask, stroking the cover as though daring it to warm. "To look upon this tome is to risk madness from the spirits that keep your gates," so the notes say. "But for a wise traveller, one who can tread the line between life and death, you'll yield knowledge almost no mortal has earned. Power to speak to the dead, control over the undead." He lifted a small dark amethyst from a velvet cup and turned it in his palm. "No keyhole," he said, "half to the gem, half to himself. Only appetite. A unique stone for a unique mouth. Place the stone in the keyhole and the book comes to life. It speaks to me once again. You can't shake the feeling that darkness seeps out of this heavy, orb-like thing." He laughed once, softly. "Nor do I try." He pressed the amethyst into the mask's gaping lips. The illusion shivered as hidden wards tasted the gem and chose to be satisfied. The book's clasps exhaled and the pages began to turn on their own, splaying like a slow wound. "Watch his skin," Larlock said, almost gently. The surge hit Ilin as a cool tide upon coastline. His shoulders squared. The tremor went out of his hands. A colourless sheen passed over him, a borrowed vigour that unfolded as if from inside the bones. Immediate change. I feel as though I could take a blow from any form of weapon and stand. As I do now, he breathed, ecstatic. Power and capacity. This is another one of the tome's gifts. Tam's gaze did not move from the man's face. Let us see in this vision how he deals with the terms. The gifts are, the terms are they not? Larlock stated to Tam. On the page, the glyphs seemed to notice the reader in return. The lines arranged themselves as if to be seen. Certain sigils brightened, leaned forward. Others deepened and turned away like strangers closing their coats. Ilin drew closer, forgetting to blink. It speaks to me, of promises into the ether, into the fugue. He whispered. As he read, the room tightened around him. Shadowy claws, no more than suggestions of hands, rose from the margins and touched his mind before they touched flesh, tugging at him with a steady, hungry patience. The slabs and jars fell away from his sight. Even the woman on the table became a rumor to him. Rune after rune inscribed itself behind his eyes, cold as undeath, hot as the rage from a lost love. Time rewritten, Ilin said hoarsely, not quite aware he was speaking. The book shows me my fate undone. It wants to show me the hinge and let me turn it, to take me into madness, never giving back my sanity. He flipped a page with careful violence and did not notice that he had cut his thumb. The book did, and the blood elevated and moved towards the book. He is resilient, Tam observed. Resilient enough within this fictional version. For now, Larlock agreed. The illusion stuttered, then steadied, passing through hours with the indifference of the dead. When at last Ilin dragged his gaze from the book, his eyes were full of the script not written there a moment before, and his breath came as though he had been running in place. Yes, he said, to no one. Once each day, the dead will answer me. Once each night, vigor returns as if worn like armor I never had before the gift, and a gesture from Ilin Toth with his left arm. 4 places in the room cooled at once, as the 4 bodies laying upon the floor twisted and contorted as the magic hit their forms. Ghouls rose obediently from nothing and bowed with a certain courtesy. Another gift, Tam stated with an elegance. The book reads him as he reads it. Is this correct, Tam? Although the Shadow King already knew. Each page he turns writes another line in him. Those who finish the reading keep the faculties. Command over the dead, an ability to speak with the deceased, a daily parley with the unbreathing. Let us now discuss the error-free tale. Shall we, Shadow King? Tam finished his statement with a thread of delighted madness settling over Larlock's face. The Shadow King then uttered, "How instructive. Now we can expand upon the delicacy that is the fulcrum of how the Necromancy of Thay came to leave your lands." The braziers in the highest library held a steady arterial glow, while dust fell in patient spirals. Larlock let a map formed from enchantment magic float above the table. Faerun drawn in fine silver, its coasts pulsing faintly as if remembering Toril and the secrets from the Nether Age. The ancient wizard then touched one skeletal finger to a pinpoint west of the Sea of Fallen Stars. Moonhaven, he said, almost idly. A village that grew after a temple to Selûne set its foundations in the town. A lantern hung where travelers wanted refuge in the Moon Maiden's embrace. Zastam regarded the light with his usual stillness. Ilin, one of my red wizards, chose it, he said, making the name sound identical to a diagnosis. Sometime in or before the year of the unstrung harp, 1371 by the counting, he fled Thay in a manner that offended an entire council of Zulkirs, my egocentrism according to the tales in that mix. He believed correctly that if he ever returned to Thay, he would die at once. A pause hung in the air. I never did understand why his troubles and fears were positioned within my care. Many evenings we travelled Thaymount Citadel. On a number of those evenings, we would descend to the lower depths. Few have been given that privilege. If I remember correctly, I lost him for a time, a miscalculation upon my part. Perhaps the lost spirits of the creator races gave him a contemplation, an idea for that love of his. Larlock's ion stones drew a fraction closer, amused. Those creator races do inform the basis of the consensus. Alas, Zulkir, we are here to discuss another scripture. He waved, and the map pulled north and west, revealing a tower ringed by script. Moonrise Towers. The High Heralds kept necromantic codices there once. Technical, meticulous work, hidden under the varnish of heraldry. Our Ilin intended to cobble together a resurrection from those recipes. A woman in his past. He could not forgive the world for taking. Love is the forever solvent, Tam replied. It dissolves law, reason, and sense at the same rate. Real love, Shadow King. Have you experienced it? Perhaps not. Let me bring back the veil for your amusement. Real love is always chaotic to mortals, even those in Thay. They lose control, their perspective. The greater the love, the greater the chaos. Larlock began to enumerate, voice taking on the cadence of a court clerk in Neverwinter who enjoyed his role. The High Heralds seemed to have the tome he required, the Tharkiot Codex, a thread to further his understanding of the Necromancy of Thay, the one the wretch stole from our libraries. Those High Heralds, let us first discuss their role. They were established in 992 DR, and, by the year of Rogue Dragons, 1373, reduced or refined to 6 seats that call themselves by offices instead of names. Unicorn, first among the heralds and the first office to be created, with a veto only unanimity can overturn. Old Knight, keeper of the holdfast stacks, and the trainer of those pursuivant young who think ink is their armor. Also, shepherd to the ever-shifting green shield and gauntlet. Black Visor, the walker of courts and battle lines, the one who tells the Merchants League where the fires of war will break next. The holder of this office travelled extensively Zulkir, keeping wide of intrigues, court dynamics, the mood of various populations, and briefed the Lord's Alliance and the Merchants League on the status of conflicts around Faerun. Crescent Coat, contrarian by design, training local heralds and presenting both sides until the walls of kings and queens confessed which side they preferred. Usually this position was dictated by a woman, I note. They often did present all sides of issues brought before the High Heralds, routinely taking a contrary position to ensure a thorough debate. The Red Dragon was kept young on purpose, a diplomat and matchmaker, arranging noble marriages like runes within a spell, the ceremonial escort when a bauble became a title. Their primary role, to inspire and hope that their fresh ideas and idealism would counterbalance the older members of the council. And lastly, invited in 1373 DR, the Silver Stag, Ilvathael Everstone, building, nurturing and expanding heraldic traditions through Songhal for Impiltur, Thesk, Damara, and the east beyond the sea of fallen stars. Tam's gaze wandered over the Shadow King's eye sockets, curious of the relevance. A council with the reputation for fairness, integrity, impartiality, and perhaps true neutrality, I assume their positions have included access to various tomes throughout the years. Ilin would have assumed their libraries were safer than the temples he was accustomed to, their librarians easier to bribe, or perhaps, with his mastery of magic within Thay, he would have had a keen upper edge to gain the knowledge he wished for his beloved's demise. Predictable, but oh so pathetic. The map dimmed. The tower brightened. In its place came the sketched outline of a gorge, and, far to the west of Thay, the young borderland where Eltergard would one day patrol. As Larlock spoke, a faint glimmer of curiosity filled the chamber within Warlock's crypt. In the early years of Eltergard, the Hell Riders rode circuits near Moonhaven. Patrols breed certainty for some, and resentment for others. Damon Brisker, descendant of the Founders, chafed at the Hell Riders' bright armor in his narrow streets. A helpful tension for a fugitive necromancer, Tam interjected. Larlock's red Ioun stone brightened. He ran from your council, I assume. He believed you would kill him if he returned. Knowing this, it would not be far removed to state he hated you. He chose a village that would allow him to fall into rumor, one that granted him amnesty so his experimentations could remain a secret. Was he competent? Larlock asked. The Shadow King always had a curious nature for those who spent time studying the arcane, especially those who focused on the necromantic arts. Very, Tam stated with a cool finality. Despite this, doomed in the way competent wizards are when they mistake the Republic of Books for safety, without contemplating the consequences we would use for a traitor. Tam inclined his head. Nor do I tolerate desertion when it drags my name behind it. The charlatan was ignorant if he thought we or others would not discover his research. As I stated earlier, love is a powerful motivator after all. Eilind's atheism is not rare among Thayan necromancers. Some of us prefer contracts we can read, but hatred of the regent is sloppy work. I would be remiss if I did not ask the question. Did you send riders, those red wizards of yours? Tam's gaze twitched, a slight sense of displeasure from the question being asked. I sent those who I could spare. Their task at the time was to gather information and try to find an inkling of Eilind's whereabouts. Although I must state, it was one of my lesser concerns at the time. I had them focus on whispers within markets, from Luskan to Candlekeep, and all around the sea of fallen stars. One tale did raise a note of Eilind's whereabouts. Some whispered that they spotted him, although in spite of that, there were rumblings of complications within the town, enough to know that the Hellriders' patrols would one day complicate the neighborhood, and that Moonhaven's oldest families were already tired of being told what was safe. Larlock closed his hand, and the map folded itself away, leaving only the steady braziers and the old red hush of the tower within Warlock's crypt. Then we understand Eilind, he said. A Thayan heretic who chose West Faerun out of spite and necessity to right the wrongs in Jurgel's quill. A lover who trusted his own connection to the weave more than the gods, and a man who thought the High Heralds wouldn't notice their tome missing. The braziers in the High Library now dimmed to an emerald glow, while Larlock paged through a thin, foxed ledger. This was a municipal registry that continually remembered what Larlock had documented within his mental repository. He tapped a line with one polished bone. Moonhaven, he said. Let's go back to when he first arrived. The scripture states he used an apothecary shop as his illusion and mask. He helped local townspeople with their maladies and offered all manner of herbs, unguents, and potions for the aid of others. Some he sold for sleep to the sleepless and ease to the aching. By day, a shelf of jars, a counter of measures. By night, a staircase and a hatch that led to his experimentations. Tam inclined his head. Eilind Toth wore the healer's mask well. I will notice that success. He is owed that much. He used the mask just enough to keep a village alive, long enough to make use of it. The shop cured headaches at noon and made cadavers by midnight, to further his understanding of the art. A sheet of papyrus rose from the table, catching the light until it stamped sigils that showed through, ink seals, each like a small bruise that would never heal. Larlock studied them with a scholar's affection. The book he hoarded bears its reader's wisdom and memory. It notes Eilind tried to request necromantic codexes, their enigmas. The librarian in Moonrise Towers wrote with gratifying rudeness that it was the wrong volume for the Necromancy of Thay, and that Toth should have sought the Tharkiot Codex instead. How unlucky he wasn't able to complete his research. It was quaint. Furious activity is no substitute for voracious understanding. The High Herald's librarian did well, Tam said. The codexes are locks. The Tharkiot Codex is the anatomy to the skeleton of necromantic understanding he wished to undertake. Larlock's ion stones tightened their orbit pleased, and the request was denied anyway. An interest more than casual was clear. They could sense the path he wished to take. And for that, I admire the 6. The Black Visor's hand had a sensible paranoia in the end. Larlock turned a new page and let the scene arrange itself out loud, the way a cartographer dots a coastline. Beneath the ruin, by 1492 DR, the town of Moonhaven was properly ruined. The lair stayed hidden under his apothecary, and beyond that, a mirrored door that showed a spectral face to frighten the credulous. A good mask. A door that reflects the thief back at himself until he decides to leave. I also heard that there was a riddle, one that stated you as a foul, wretched lich. You must state, Zulkir, that this is not erroneous to your nature. He should have chosen a lock that did not admire his own piteous vanity, Tam said. While he could easily reanimate the body of the deceased woman, restoring her back to life proved elusive. The motivator remained. While masquerading as the village healer, he committed many terrible deeds. He killed many of the patients brought into his apothecary, buried them deep underground within his lair, and used their remains as part of his necromantic research. The black art is one all should undertake. Even so, its mysteries are often more taxing within the isolation of one's own research. He could not let her go. He mistakenly believed that he could raise one woman from the dead, if only the mixture were exact this time. Although he reanimated her body easily, he could not reawaken the life that refused to come back to him. Perhaps she admired her allocation within the fugue. Tam's voice thinned to iron. A competent red wizard learns the difference between animation and restoration early. Ilin was competent. Unfortunately, he was merely faithless and impatient. A familiar devotion, Larlock said, almost amused. He kept an arcanabula for it too, the messy kind. Notes for workings completed and workings abandoned. He let his hand hover, defining shapes in the air. Arcanabula, the workshop book, untidy, Catholic, and alive. A travelling spell book, a paired copy, compact enough to keep his recorded just long enough for his secrets to be passed to within our care. The Tharkiot Codex, when properly consulted, would have clarified as much. Necromantic books that wear magic locks are not simply trapped. Their glyph chains would ask the questions back. Ciphers would shift in reply to the reader's competence. The Moonrise librarian's comment makes that plain. He tilted the vellum so that one line winked. Tam's eyes did not waver. He would have reached for Thayan techniques he only half understood. Partitioned phylacteries, soul anchoring with ethical blinders, a substitution of animus for anima, every solution brighter than the last, each failing in exactly the same place, the part that is not chemistry. Let us now speak of the necromantic tome, the true necromancy of Thay. You wrote some of its secrets after all. Outside, the bridges made their patient lines across the night. Inside, the two liches sat with the map of a ruined shop, a mirrored door, a stamped denial, and a book that wanted the right reader. The braziers had settled into a deep, thinking red when Larlock lifted one hand and let an image coalesce over the table. A heavy tome bound in flayed purple, its cover worked into a funerary mask with a lipless mouth. No keyhole marred its face. A proper Thayan precaution, he said, almost fond. Secrets of life and death too dear for parchment, and so, when written at all, warded by the jealous dead. Who better to keep watch than spirits that covet what they lost? Committing such secrets to parchment is a risk they are loath to take, lest the unworthy gaze upon them. Zastam studied the phantasmal volume with a calm that could be mistaken for his indifference. The Necromancy of Thay, he said. Our archivists speak of it in the tone men reserve for their widest discoveries. For one that assisted in its creation, I appreciate the zealous nature to understand its wisdom. Larlock tilted the image so the cover's mouth gaped. A dark amethyst, no bigger than an apple, turned slowly in the air. You can't shake the feeling that darkness seeps out of the stone. The amethyst, he quoted, dry amusement threading the words. A librarian's note we placed within its telepathic communion. The jealous dead as doormen, Tam said. To look upon the text is to invite the book to look back. The glyphs inside carry a mind of their own, or many, whispering, testing, persuading. If you lack resilience, they press hard. Claws of shadow reaching for the psyche, a tug toward an elsewhere with too many echoes. Those who force the reading see time rewritten within their psyche, their fate undone, while the script carves new runes into the reader's mind. And those who finish? Larlock asked, though he had already guessed the shape of the bargain. They're changed, Tam stated with a cool fashion. The record is consistent. A surge, power and capacity rushing in like a cold tide. Afterward, the reader wakes from each true rest, wearing a carapace of borrowed vigor, 20 heartbeats thick. The dead answer them without fail, and with a single, measured gesture, dance macabre in all but name, they can summon and command ghouls as easily as calling dogs to heel. Gifts, Larlock observed, and debts. Tam moved gracefully over the image of the tome. The gifts are the debts. Every day the vigor returns. A thread in you belongs to the book. Every time the dead answer, you owe silence where they wish it. Every dance you command leaves a scuff on the floor of the soul. The profanity of the knowledge is usually unbearable. We designed it that way, to be the fulcrum to the dark art, to twist resurrection and trap the soul between the material and the fugue while the spell takes hold. And those who begin and cannot finish Tam, their mind is then overwhelmed, insights like iron filings lodged behind the eyes, buzzing, cutting, magnetizing everything toward the same dark eternity. Some recover. Some go still into the ether of knowledge. Some begin to hear requests from the fugue, or in some reports, Jurgle himself giving a final push to their name in the ledger. He let the amethyst drift down and seat itself between the phantasmal teeth. Ilin knew of it. He had it. But even within that crypt of his, he could not unlock its secrets. Larlock inclined his skull. The dark justiciars, under Ketheric Thorn, scrubbed Moonhaven to the stone. Ilin's apprentice intended to ransom ambition into redemption, returning the tome back to Thay, proving his loyalty, erasing his and his master's errors with a single delivery. A thin pause, almost sympathetic. He perished in the tunnels instead. The Necromancy of Thay. Its true purpose, to deliver the knowledge I and the Zulkirs had accumulated. Its impetus to deliver the dark art was always meant to soar within the world. A communion to the land of the dead was its last gift, for the material does not hold all the answers. The land of the dead should not be hidden beyond a veil. He paused, as if resisting his next words. If you wish to destroy it, although that would be a mistake, use a radiant weapon, preferably a weapon infused by the gods. Where others see misfortune, I saw only the opportunity to expand others' understanding. Vel-Sharoon has it correct. Life and death are the twin faces of eternal existence. To surrender to either one is to resign oneself to obscurity. True power lies in the twilight zone between life and death. The red glow steadied. Somewhere in the high dark, wings cut a silent arc. The conversation did not end so much as choose a shelf, filing itself between the Tharkiot and Thayan tomes on necromancy. Under a label, both liches understood the lesson of Elin Toth and his endless pursuit of longing to bring back the twilight of his beloved.